very, very grateful for our guest panelists who are joining us today. I'm going to just start on my screen, which is Heather Leary, and Heather is with us from Research and Theory Division. So welcome. We have Jennifer Bauman. Jennifer is with OTP. Not that I am like favorites in OTP or anything there, but just a little plug. We have Bruce DuBoff with us as well with Technology. Hello, and Integrated Learning Division. We also have I have Dr. Tonia Dousay. Am I hearing that correctly? Yeah, I'm passing names right now, so I'm so very happy. We have Larissa, I'm not gonna try this, Olsova? Close enough, she's being very nice to me right now. We also have Dr. Ayesha Sadaf, who is with the Division of Distance Learning. And we also have with us Todd Adrian, which is Systems Thinking and Change Division. What was that?
Todd Adrian.
Adrian, please forgive me. I'm very grateful that I made it that far with this. And the thought process from GSA to bring this webinar is, it's my fault because I don't know how to write a proposal. And so I said, how cool would it be if we could give some tips and tricks to folks who might be just like me and not have a clue when you have this long list of divisions of who to submit to. And you're like, you want me to come up with a topic? You want me to come up with a division? What? And so we kind of like, with our Blown's brain, and we thought, hey, how about we try something really different and bring folks in who've done it, been there, done it, had the t-shirt, and are willing to help us try and earn a t-shirt. So we hope that you will enjoy a very different type of webinar brought to you by GSA. And Atika, I'm turning it back to you.
Actually, we can go ahead and continue with Dr. Dousay, and she has a 10 minutes presentation, go over general expectations. Then we'll have each of our panelists to have 2-3 minutes that they share tips and tricks for their division or in general. And then hopefully by 3 or 5, we'll go back to breakout rooms. And there we have worked examples that each breakout room is going to work on with the panelists guiding them and helping them.
Okay, let me ask a quick question.
Yes.
I will be a very good timekeeper in this instance, but I would like permission to how you would like me to give you time. Do you want me to give you the infamous 2 minutes? Do you want me to Zoom chat you?
Actually,
I like bold.
You like big and bold?
Yes.
You got it. Big and bold is coming. I'll do it as politely as I know how.
And Dr. Dousay has 10 minutes.
Yep, I got my timer ready to go.
2-3 minutes.
Got it. We're good.
And all panelists are co-hosts, so you should have access to a screen share or anything you like to. Just go ahead. We can start off. Dr. Dousay, thank you.
Thank you, Atika, and thank you to GSA for hosting this. I get to take a little bit of pride as a past GSA president a number of years ago. So I love watching what you're continuing to do and how you support the organization and all of its members, but especially our graduate students. Welcome, everyone. I am Dr. Tonia Dousay, or as many call me, Dr. D. That works as well. I am this year's convention co-planner. So let me take us into screen share real quick to talk about the AECT 21 convention. Can I get a thumbs up if we can see the screen? Awesome. Thank you so much. So this year's theme, and actually before I even get too far, upper right-hand corner, you can see rebrand.ly, rebrandly/AECT21, start the game. That will take you to these slides. There's only 3, but you might still want to have them so you can quickly click on links. Our convention theme for AECT this year is Homecoming, Homestaying, a return to learning through innovation. And I'm going to explore that a little deeper here in a moment. But I want to highlight a few things here on this little cover slide. That is important dates, November 2nd through the 6th. That would be the dates of the convention. Columbus, Ohio, and virtual. What does that tell you? Tells you that we're planning for hybrid. We saw a lot of great benefits from last year. We want to try to incorporate those into the organization on a permanent basis, but we also recognize that it's a questionable time and we've got a lot of concerns and questions. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that virtual component as well. But before we dig into some of those, I want you to have some important details and names. She could not join us today, so I am also representing Dr. Ali Carr-Shellman. Allie is our AECT president-elect this year, which makes her the AECT convention planner. She has asked me to be her co-planner and assist her with this process. And it's been, goodness, 6 years since the last time I did this. I helped Dr. Rob Branch plan Jacksonville in 2014, which was an exciting convention and a fantastic process. So I'm very happy to be helping Allie in this capacity. But I also wanted you to have access to the list of planners. So you can see who are the planning committee for this year. That was something I wanted to make sure we were very transparent about. So you have a link. If you have the link to the slides, you have the link to this doc. You now know exactly who's on our committee and how they're working in this capacity. And at the bottom of the list, there's a handy key for all those little acronym codes that we throw out, like TIL and OTP and DELT and D&D and DDL, and let's play the alphabet soup game. So here you have a handy cheat sheet, but let's go back to those slides real quick. The convention website is the third and final link that I have for you. And we're going to go through this together, but this is where I'm going to stop screen share so that we can have a conversation. Because now that you have these links, you can follow along in the background, yes? Plus, I'd much rather see faces and interact with folks. So let me go back in time into my slides, maybe. Possibly, if the technology will work.
7 minutes, 7 minutes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this year's convention, homecoming, homestaying, and virtual. Lots of questions there, perhaps. Traditionally, each AECT convention has had a theme, and that is part of the President-elect's message and legacy. This year, though, Allie and I really wanted to focus on innovation and the field, because if you hadn't noticed, there's a whole lot happening around the world right now. Necessity is the mother of invention. And we just happen to be going to Columbus, Ohio, which has some pretty cool companies based there. And Ohio as a state has some pretty cool innovative history. Anybody familiar with any of that? Anybody know the state's motto or nickname and want to share it in the chat box or verbally?
Isn't that where The Office takes place?
It is. Well, no, Dunder Mifflin was Philadelphia, or outside of Philadelphia.
Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Scranton. That's what it was. Oh, I see a chat. Let me scroll. Ah, Kristen nailed it. The Wright brothers, the birthplace. Like, so North Carolina gets to be one of the birthplaces, but the Wright brothers are from Ohio. There's also all kinds of really cool innovation history in terms of inventions from Ohio. So that was one of the reasons why we latched on to innovation as kind of a key component. So what I want to tell you first thing out of the gate, don't focus on the convention theme when you're writing your proposals. That is not the purpose. You're writing to the division or affiliate that you're submitting to. So I know that our panelists are going to probably speak a little bit more about that since we have some fantastic expertise from those divisions. And if you didn't notice, some of those names on that Google Doc are the names that you're seeing here in Hollywood Squares. I want to talk a little bit about that virtual component. Right now, we are designing a hybrid experience that would have some virtual sessions at the beginning and at the end, and in the early morning, so that it would allow folks to participate virtually if they're not going to be able to come to Ohio. Now, with that, as a planning committee, we are actively monitoring worldwide response efforts, vaccinations, lockdowns, all of it. I follow a number of really awesome science communicators. Your local epidemiologist is one of them on Facebook. She is an assistant professor at the University of Texas Health Science Center and an epidemiologist. So I've enjoyed reading her very easy to approach breakdowns of what's in the vaccines and how effective are they. She actually takes the FDA reports and translates them into plain speak for everyone to understand and talks about some of the mutations. So as a committee, we share some of those details in our WhatsApp chat so that we can think about this. I can let everyone know that as a committee, we have decided that in May, we will assess the situation to determine, will it be safe to gather in groups in November? And if we need to, cancel any in-person of the convention. So I want to allay any concerns or fears, but we are also very mindful of the restrictions and limitations that folks may have, which is why we're really looking at those hybrid components so that folks will be able to participate. Trying to make sure I have my checklist of things that Atika gave me to make sure I talked about. The proposal system, yes. So the proposal system, actually, panelists, thumbs up, thumbs down. How do we like the proposal system? That's what I was thinking, sideways. It gets the job done, but it has some quirks. And these are the things that I wanted to emphasize, not necessarily the specific mechanics. There's a timeout system. There's a timer clock in the upper right-hand corner when you're logged into All Academic. Pay attention to that because it will log you out after that timer. Also note that All Academic does not like it when you click the back button, it will eat whatever you have typed. So I highly recommend you do everything somewhere else. Google Doc, Word Doc, Notepad, Text Wrangler, and then copy and paste it in. New this year, we are asking questions about how you would prefer to present and how you think you might be attending. Those are at the bottom of the screen when you're submitting your proposal in the system. Trying to think of anything else under that one I wanted to mention. And I'm happy to answer questions as well. Session types. So typically we're going to have workshops. Those will be hosted before and after the convention. And we're going to talk, I have a question about workshops to address here in a second. We'll have concurrent presentations. We'll have panel presentations. Oh gosh, committee, what am I missing?
Innovate.
Our Innovate sessions.
Posters.
And poster roundtables, thank you. Those are the general core categories. And we do have on the website a brief explanation of what each of those are. So that members.aect.org/events/call, make that your friend. Read it forwards and backwards. Print it if you need to and highlight what you need to highlight, because it's also going to contain individual calls for each of the divisions and affiliates and the contact information in case you have a question about what that division might be looking for. So now I want to move into those few questions that I was sent ahead of time as we kind of wrap this up and hand it over to our panelists, our committee members. What advice can I provide about the proposing system or proposing sessions? I want to quickly tell a story that's probably going to get some laughs, at least I hope it will. Dr. Leary, would you say that I tend to be busy during AC week and have presentations and meetings now?
Oh yes, busy.
Yeah, it took me until my second year to get a proposal accepted. So I am so glad to see all of you here. Just because we're academics, just because we're in the field doesn't mean that we're going to get a convention proposal accepted. So I want to reiterate that. I mean, I have tenure now. I'm an associate dean at the University of Idaho, but I didn't get accepted to AECT. It took me a couple of times. The number one secret I can recommend, find somebody who had a proposal submitted to the division you're submitting to. Read it through, model it. What were the headings and subheadings? How brief were they or how detailed were they? And what did their references look like? That is your best way to get a proposal accepted when you're writing it. Number two, how do I work towards being a keynote speaker? Gee, I'm still working on that one, but I can tell you that I've been able to keynote smaller conferences. So working on getting my scholarship published, making sure that my presence is out there. The state of Wyoming asked me to keynote their Innovations in Learning conference a couple of years ago at the state level. Now, I can give you kind of a heads up of the type of keynoters that we invited AECT this
Jeopardy
year.
theme playing.
Pardon? Thank you.
Jeopardy theme playing.
Ah, gotcha. We have a keynote speaker who is a co-founder of a massive MOOC platform. So that gives you a hint at the types of keynote folks that we invite and what you might be working towards. Last but not least, how to have a strong workshop proposal. Make sure that you ground your workshop in a need or problem. Make sure that you have learning goals and make sure that you have objectives with an agenda. With that, advice from our panelists.
Okay, panelists, who would like to begin first?
We can
All
go
right.
with same order that we have on the flyer, Aneda.
Okay, we're going with the same order that we have on the flyer. Let me get that up again. So that means we've just heard from Tonia. So it's Todd. Go ahead.
Well, I had 3 questions sent to me. What makes a proposal stand out? What are the mistakes that should be avoided? And what are the main topics that you are looking for proposal submissions? I'll say this. I'm a big rubric person, and I strongly recommend you follow the guidelines that are provided through the AECT proposals. There are 15 principles that, when followed like a rubric, will assist you with writing a strong proposal. I think it makes me think back when I was a student. I would always, when I had an assignment or a paper to write, I would always go to that rubric if the instructor provided it and make sure I hit every section of that rubric. And if you do that, you're definitely on your way to submitting a strong proposal. What are the mistakes that should be avoided? It sounds basic, but you would be surprised. Proofread your proposal. Read it out loud. Have someone else review it. If your proposal contains spelling and grammar, that might automatically be a disqualifier by some of the reviewers. And you could have the best idea and topic or presentation in the world, but if you have some grammar and spelling mistakes, it appears sloppy and people may not want to pick it just because of that. Tonia mentioned this. Vet your proposal by a colleague or someone from the division. I love the idea of looking at someone else's proposal that was already submitted from a previous conference, but have someone who's been in the division for a while and has presented at the conference look at your proposal and ask for feedback. That would definitely be helpful. And here's a basic one, but it's difficult sometimes, especially when you're looking at the themes, but make sure you're submitting it to the correct division. Sometimes there's overlap and it's hard to determine which division your idea or your topic or problem that you're trying to address fits into, but I would say make sure you look at the different proposals requirements from the divisions. And submitting it to the appropriate division is definitely in your best interest and the conference. Tonia mentioned this too. You're trying to address a topic that is identifying a problem and what it is you want to present as the problem, and clearly stating out what your objectives are and how you're going to present the problem and then potential solutions. And I wrote this down: a well-informed proposal that clearly states what the presentation will cover and the format that will be utilized. And that's even more important this year, as we're going to be asked to, do you want to present online? Do you want to present face-to-face? So again, just make sure as you're developing your proposal, you have all these things in mind. But my biggest takeaway is look at those 15 principles. I have it right here. I'm going to drop it in the chat. But it's a link to the 15 proposals on the AECT website, and definitely something to review because it will be applicable to any of the divisions that you're submitting to.
Thank you so much, Todd. I appreciate that. So now let's go ahead and hear from Bruce. Bruce?
Hello, everybody. I actually did make a PowerPoint, just a couple of slides. So I got the same 3 questions that Todd got, and I actually probably covered a lot of the same ground, but so excellent job, Todd, of stealing my thunder. But yeah, what stands out for a good proposal? Clean, tight language. Good writing is, we're all in the profession. I tell this, I come from a practitioner perspective. I taught high school and middle school, and now I'm almost finished my PhD. And I can tell you that from that perspective and from the test taking perspective, because I do a lot of test prep and I worked for educational testing for many years. People judge you based on your language, like it or not. If you write well and you write cleanly, people, pay attention to that. And I used to have a policy when I worked in the business world, when I was a purchasing agent and I was doing hiring. If you made one spelling error on your resume, I dismissed it. Now, I know that sounds harsh, but the truth is you have every opportunity to spell every single thing correctly because you're working on a proposal that you have time to do, you know, and the time to edit. So I know that sounds silly, and you may think, well, come on, you know, that's what he's going to talk to me about for 3 minutes. But I got to tell you, does that mean I have 1 minute or I used one?
That means you're under a minute now.
Okay. Adherence to the theme, if there is one. And again, don't be casual, be specific, be targeted, be, you know what you're looking at. Try to be unique about your topic. Have clear objectives, just like the Todd and Tonia were saying. And then finally, pay attention to the division, like people were saying, but also pay attention to that question that I always get asked from every professor of mine: who cares? You know, why is this important? Why should I care about this? And the other thing, as a person new to the field, the way that I learned how to write a presentation and a proposal was to review lots of proposals from other people. So I strongly recommend that you offer to do that to get a sense of, how to do it.
All right, thanks, Bruce. So Jennifer, you are now up.
I was loving the music you have.
Ayesha, I got you to buy this
of our timer, Annetta. That is great. Once you get into like the fourth person, it probably starts sounding the same to everybody. You start talking about the tips. I'm going to answer Aubrey's question that she just put into the chat. Each division is different on whether or not they accept graduate students as reviewers. So I would reach out to your conference planner. My division, Bruce answered the question in chat, his division, so OTP TIL. I know both of our divisions accept graduate students, and we will pair them with seasoned reviewers so that it's not all graduate students necessarily reviewing the same proposal, but it could be a graduate student and two non-students reviewing it to come up with the rubric score that we use for assessing the answers. So yes, we do accept graduates, students, and we can go on to a whole separate tirade about volunteering, but Bruce is right. It is best to volunteer and talk to your faculty advisors. The other thing is understand what you're going to present and how much time you have to present. If you're just starting out, like maybe this is your first year of school and you're just trying to wet your feet and get some insights from your peers about your topic, maybe a poster or a roundtable would be best for you. If you've done your dissertation, you've already put together your data, I see Annetta, then maybe a concurrent is better. If you have learning objectives, you want to do something hands-on, think about doing an innovative session where you can actually give people practical knowledge to walk away with. So just those things to consider. And then also, all the divisions have bylaws, and most of us include kind of a sense of who we are in our proposals. So just making sure that you are looking at each one of the individual division calls to kind of help you. I would write your proposal, and then I would look at the division calls and figure out what division fits best for you. And if you're uncertain, contact one of the planners and we can help you with that fit, even if our division is not the right division.
Thank you. So this brings us to Heather. Heather, do you have new information that you would like to present to us? And that's okay if you don't, and if you do, great.
So I would just add on what makes a proposal stand out. Oftentimes a catchy title. We can get into the really boring academic titles, right? And sometimes a catchy title will help with the reviewing, but also if it's accepted, more people might find it and come because of the catchy title. So don't be afraid to be creative in that title, but make sure the title does represent what your proposal is about as well. I think just a clear purpose for your proposal, that's really important so that people who are reading it and reviewing it understand what it is you're presenting. You want that up front. You want them to know what it is that you are writing about. You don't want it hidden at the very end. Oh, okay, this was all about. Like, we want to know that at the beginning. Anything else that's new? Probably not. I think everybody else has probably covered the main things that I would say, but I do want to emphasize, have other people look at your proposals. Have other graduate students who have presented that you know look at it, talk with your faculty advisor, have them look at it, contact any of the planners if you have questions. We are happy to help.
Excellent. Thank you, Heather. So that takes us to Ayesha. Ayesha, would you like to add anything to help us out? I'm so sorry you were the last one on that flyer.
No, it's okay. Yeah, in addition to everyone, whatever you all said, I would say that to make your proposal stand out, first and foremost is focus on the audience. So in case of our division of distance learning, we are looking at proposals that are focused on fully online and blended learning, virtual schools and universities, multi-user, personal learning, virtual environments, and web and video conferencing. So if you have that focus, so then you do submit to our division, and similarly, other divisions would have their own focuses that you can know more about. And then again, I would, say the same thing as Heather. Title and your session descriptions are very important for your audience to convince them that you really want them to attend. There are so many sessions, and in the convention plan, people are confused. They have to pick and choose where they want to go. So have a title. It's kind of like a one line, your elevator pitch, and to convince your audience why they want to come to your presentation. So most of the time, like we all, judge our interest based on the title. And the second one is the session description. So focus on the outcome. Make sure you tell your audience what they're going to get out of your presentation. So I would suggest have one sentence that describes the topic that you are going to talk about, and then have one more sentence that describes what the audience will take away from your presentations. That's all you need to focus on. So those two things are important. And then again, everybody has said about the abstract, that's important. Things to avoid. Last year, I was the DDL convention planner. So I would say don't go over word limit. Make sure you follow the word limit. There were so many, not so many, there were few really good proposals that I really wanted to accept, but I couldn't because, the rule is the rule, and it's, for everybody, it's the same. So you have to be fair. And, like we are using the rubrics that has to be aligned with that. Incomplete proposals. Some of the proposals were really nice at the beginning. They had a really great plan, everything. Half of it, no results, nothing, so you don't even trust that if they'll be able to finish by, the convention starts. So make sure you have a complete proposals. And right now, the rubric that we have, it looks at your methodology, lit review, and it also looks at the results and, what is the significance of your results in the field. So that's very important. And then, submit to the right division, and then I'll have Larissa share the topics that we are looking for this year for DDL.
So you want me to talk?
The topics that we are looking for this year?
Yeah, the topics, I'm sharing the link, not to read all of them. You can go to this link, and one of the topics, we have the list: blogging, podcasting, online gaming, instructional design, instructional strategies, student success, faculty development, enhanced motivation, online collaboration, and the list is long. Just go to that link and the topics are there. As Ayesha said, everything should be related to online or blended learning.
Excellent. Thank you. So Atika, I'm very proud to report to you, we're only 6 minutes into our time. So we probably should get people into the breakout rooms. So.
And are we ready to send people to breakout rooms? Yes, so panelists, you guys have access to the folders that have dropped examples. And if you can share that with your breakout room, and each breakout room will have 5-6 people currently. Thank you.
I'll go over there. once I'm done tweeting.
Those two attendees are not assigned to breakout rooms, or we are waiting for
Yes,
them?
they are. They just haven't joined yet.
Abdullahi and Huda, are you able to? Abdullahi, are you there?
Well, welcome back, everybody. So, Atika, do you want the panelists to talk about what they heard? Do you want us as participants to discuss some of what we experienced? What's the idea at this point? I'm trying to find it. There's Atika.
Yes, I'm here. So we have about 25 minutes. So I hope you all had a really good time in breakout rooms, and that was a useful time. Use of useful time for you guys. And we can start with panelists to share their inputs from what they had seen in breakout rooms and what they discussed. And then we can have attendees to ask any questions they might have.
Okay, so what I'd like to do, since I think we have about a half hour, Tika, how about we give the panelists about 15 minutes and give the bulk to Q&A?
Sounds good.
Okay, I'm gonna set my timer, which many of you have heard, and Atika likes to shut off for 15 minutes starting now.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Dousay, would you like to go first? We can go in same order as we did at the beginning.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. So our group really started out with kind of what's the difference between the three types of proposals, especially because it's a really obvious question. What's the difference between a theory proposal and a research proposal? Because doesn't a research proposal have theory in it? It's a very valid question. So one of the things that we did was go through side by side and what do we notice differently. So a research proposal looks an awful lot like a research article in a journal. It's got an introduction, there's a problem, there's methods, there's data that's analyzed, and then you have some conclusions and you wrap up your limitations. So it's like a miniature research article. But then theory would be more along the lines of cooking up this idea. I want to bring these theories together, but I also need to highlight, like the literature needs to tell us the story of these theories and how they might come together and reveal a problem that we can solve. And then of course, practice would be how we're applying it and what are those full details. I'm actually wondering if I can get maybe Aubrey or Stacy, do you want to talk about the diamonds example that we came up with? Or do you want me to share? You want me to share, don't you?
Do it if you want me to. This is Stacy.
I'll do it. We talked about how you can think of a diamond has multiple facets. So every project that you work on is a diamond. And that project probably started off with that theory concept. So you could potentially publish off of that at the beginning of your project. And then as you're collecting your data and you finish up that analysis, there's your second presentation off of your diamond project. And then the third would be the practical piece. And how did we pull it off? And what did we learn from it? And what would we do differently next time? Did I do a good job, Aubrey and Stacy? Jose?
You did.
Excellent.
That is brilliant. Sorry, I know I'm not supposed to participate, but that was brilliant. All right, so we go to our next person in line, which is, okay, let me bring this back up. It is Todd. Todd, will you share with us for a minute or so?
Yes, we actually took a very different approach. So we pulled up the three, yes, thank you. We pulled up the three Google Docs and just analyzed which of the, with each three documents, we analyzed what was included and what potentially was missing, or and it was the second one they had an outline where they just had way too much information in the proposal. So we didn't look at it from if it was a research-based or theory-based type of design there, Tonia, which was a great approach. But we looked at it as far as the structure and format. And then one of the things I did, a question came up about white space and formatting. And so I logged into the conference proposal and showed, because I don't think anyone in my room ever submitted one in, I'm sorry, one person did submit one before, but they didn't know what it looked like to submit a proposal. So I showed them how, you know, you have your title and your keywords and your abstract, and one question was brought up though, and it is a great point, and that was about references. And one of the articles, it said not enough space for references, and then another one, it had all the references. Now I'm of the opinion, and this is related to academic writing, but that I always, even if there's not space, I know that there's, you know, a 750 word limit, 1,000 word limit, but I always include references and know that it's possible, it's something that would not be necessarily read in the proposal. So can somebody clarify that with how reviewers are looking at that? Because that was a question that asked, and I said, I want to make sure I give them the right information.
There's no correct answer, unfortunately, Todd. It's fuzzy as it can be, and reviewers will look at it differently. That question came up in our group too. I advise to at least acknowledge that you had them if you don't list them, but I've been thinking about a new approach lately. And that is put a short link to my reference document on Google Docs so that I have space for my proposal.
I think everyone agreed being able to attach a document would be much, you know, easier, but we understand this is the limitations of that system. And then one last thing we did discuss, and I took them to the AECT website, is what's the best, you know, what's a poster presentation? What does that entail? You know, and what's the layout of it? And then, you know, what's the difference between a concurrent session? So again, these are some great questions that the group asked. So I'm interested to hear what the other panelists discussed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Adrian. Bruce?
Hi, so we actually took a completely different approach to that. We looked at one of the articles, the practice article, and kind of compared it to the 15 principles and the rubric. And we looked at it and basically decided what we felt was effective about it and what we felt was ineffective about it, and, you know, which division we would have submitted it to and how we would have reworked it. So we kind of like workshopped the one presentation instead of looking at all three, because we just felt like that was the one most relevant to our, you know, to our space. And I thought we had a great discussion. Everybody participated and really, you know, kind of got into it. Many of the folks are new to this, and you know, I think the most important thing is never let this process intimidate you, because, you know, I mean, there's no reason to. You know, you should stand tall with everybody. Who else had comments from our group?
If you like, we can go ahead and move to Dr. Bauman, and then last 15 minutes, we are going to get questions from attendees.
We are good right now. We have 9 minutes for our panelists, so we're doing really well.
Great.
So our group kind of approached it the same way as Bruce did, but also had similar discussion as Todd did about the references and the system and stuff like that. So I let my group kind of decide which proposal they wanted to look at, because I wanted it to be geared towards them, while my inclination is to go towards practice as a practitioner. As graduate students, you guys are probably more inclined to go towards the research of the theory. So I wanted to use something that was practical for my group. And we kind of reviewed it, and I brought up the system and showed them how that they would take how that article, how that was formatted, and kind of put it into the system, because the lines don't match one for one. And we reviewed it, and I kind of had them discuss which division they thought might fit for it, because a lot of the trick with submitting is figuring out what division is. And, you know, they were kind of split. And I said, well, you know, you pick which one's best, but then you can also talk to us planners, and us as planners, we can talk and bounce between divisions if we need to, if we think it's a better fit somewhere else. So just letting them know there's some flexibility in there. My comment about references was for your 1,000 word limit that it says for the abstract, don't count your references. You can put your references in there. Honestly, All Academic doesn't cut you off when you hit 1,000 words. So my recommendation is always put in your abstract, use that to your 1,000-word count. Don't worry about the references going above that, and then include your references after. If you do as Dr. Dousay said, and include a link like to a bit.ly link or something to a Google Drive, just make sure that it does not have your personal information on it, because these are supposed to be blind reviews and we don't want them to know who is the submitter. We as planners know who you guys are because we have access to your names, but our reviewers are going through it. We don't want them to be swayed by personal opinion if they know you. So we want them to just go based on your proposal. So if you do include a link to an outside source, which I'm not 100% sure if All Academic will allow it, but if you can get that to work, make sure that your name and institution are not included in that reference document. Just have it be a final reference page like it would be at the end of your paper, and just don't have the running head on there, would be my recommendation. The other thing I did was I kind of went a little rogue, and I brought up a proposal that I submitted in 2019, just to show a little bit of a difference with the Innovate session, because we didn't have an example. These ones all fell into that concurrent or roundtable. So just showing them how I follow All Academic and how that was a little bit different. So if you have something of that practical nature that you want to do that's hands-on, how you might want to approach that differently for the Innovate. I'm bouncing to you, Heather.
It's my turn. So our group was a little bit like Bruce and Jennifer. We looked at one, we looked at the practice one, and we just started going through it, and we looked at the title first and said, no, do we understand what this is even about after reading the title? And so then it brought up for me, I'm like, well, you don't want jargon in your title. You want it to be clear. And if there's a lot of jargon in that, people may not even like keep reading or really even understand what's going on because there's so much jargon. So be careful with jargon. And then we also talked about how oftentimes when I write, so I had to tell them, this is how I do it, right? I will write my proposal, and then I go back and I write my little short description, and then I write my title. Or I will have like 5 different titles for this proposal, and I'm trying to figure out which one is best. And when I have someone else look at it, I say, which title do you think works best for what's written here? So don't be afraid to work with different titles until you're ready to submit it, and ask people what they think about the title. And don't feel like you have to start at the top, title first, short description, and then the whole thing. Write pieces, put it together. Just make sure if you do that piece part that everything flows really well from top to bottom. We talked about how transitions are really important from paragraph to paragraph, and how you want to write so that no one is making any assumptions in what they're reading. You never want your reader to assume that you meant something. You want it to be clear enough that they understand. And then that proposal we were looking at, we felt like there was a lot of assumptions the reader had to make in what they were looking at. And so don't make assumptions. Don't think that your reader's going to understand because you do. Make sure that it's just written out very clear for them. We also brought up the reference thing, and my advice is a lot like Jennifer. Put your references there. I love the idea of putting a link so that you can get out to it. Oftentimes when I write proposals, I assume, unless the call says references are included in your word count, I assume they are not.
Cool. All right. So let's go ahead and quickly go to Ayesha.
I'll cover.
I'll let Larissa share.
Yeah, Didi, Ayesha and I facilitated that. We use the approach of a reviewer to be in the role of a reviewer, and spent like 3 minutes just quick scanning of all three, what get the attention immediately. We meant weaknesses, and then we discuss all together. So the first one discuss clarity, the purpose or the goal, not clear, that the major concern, and then too much information on well-known information, and too limited information on the findings or own contribution. To use the room and the length of 1,000 words very smartly, in a smart way, just cut off the well-known information. And also we discussed the length, and Pauline calculated 3,000 for one. And Dawn, she noticed that looks like this presenter copied from publication from the paper, like submitting to paper, but even you copying from your publication submission, just customize this and make it for the conference and follow the rubric. And Ayesha shared the rubric that we used during our discussions, where the weaknesses and how they can be improved, specifically the results section, which was very difficult to read. So just put like signal words like question 1, question 2, that makes it easy for reviewers to understand your research or your proposal. And then at the end, based on all our discussions, Ayesha, she shared her proposal as an example where well-known information methodology cut off, like a very short, for example, theoretical framework is only like 2 sentences. But results is your major part that you want to share with the community, with the AECT. That is what you want to share at the conference. And again, we also discuss references, the same.
Excellent. Thank you all so much to our panelists. Please give them some love on Zoom because they've done a wonderful job. And now, right before we open this up to us to ask some more questions, Dawn, I love the heart. We would like to please tell you before you run off that we have an evaluation form that is, thanks Dr. D, that is really, really important to us as the webinar committee for you to give us feedback if you liked this format or not, because I'm the rogue rebel who is pushing for more of these formats. So we just really want to know what your thoughts are. And Atika has put into the chat the Google form to fill out for us. And now I'm going to be quiet, and it's now open to the floor for more questions.
You can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question. You can ask it to a specific panelist, or you can just ask, and whoever has the answer, they can go ahead and answer. Meanwhile, I'll be checking the chat, and I can read the questions that are already in chat.
Question. So some conferences that I've presented to and submitted to in the past, I'll say that I submitted it for a concurrent session. And then when I get the acceptance back, they'll say, we felt like this was a better as a roundtable session. So we're going to have you do a roundtable session. Does AECT work that way as well? Or if you submit to concurrent and it doesn't get accepted, then you're done?
That happened to me, Aubrey. We submitted and I got sent to a roundtable. So that was my first. So I've been told that that's actually really good luck for me to have had my first one go to a roundtable.
Happened to me last year. My teacher ed proposal on badges for level 1 and level 2 badges for teacher ed. It was a concurrent, and I got the message from the planner that said, hey, I want to accept this. Are you okay if I move it to a roundtable? Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I had the same situation 2 years ago. And frankly, it was a great experience. I thought after the roundtable, I'm like, I'm so thankful that this became a roundtable because it was perfect that way.
Yeah.
They were right.
and roundtables are fun, but I love, as you can tell, I love talking and interacting with people. So
I have a quick question. We'll likely have some preliminary results for the submission deadline with the intent to do subsequent study and research. Should I submit with the idea that additional research is going to be conducted, or at the bare minimum, what I know I will have at the deadline?
good question.
That's a really good question. Sorry, Jennifer. I just want to say the research and theory division, we have different proposal types, and we do accept in progress research. So you can say this is an in progress research proposal. This is a completed research proposal. So if you don't have everything finished, you can just say this is an in progress one and you're good to go.
Thank you, Heather, because I may be doing that with the professor I'm working with. So thank you. That's great to know. And thank you for asking that question, John.
Thanks for the answers.
Might it be a poster this year and a concurrent next year? Also,
If results are good, then I suspect.
So you might get 2 out of it, which is even better.
Always the goal.
I was just going to echo what Heather was saying. We know that not everybody's research is going to be concluded by the time our deadline happens March 31st, and you guys are in process of analyzing your data. So for OTP, you know, tell us that you're collecting your data and your goal is to have everything completed in time for your presentation. It will be considered. You don't have to necessarily have the research completely finalized if you're working on your dissertation in the spring, summer, or something like that, kind of thing. So I just wanted to add that in as well.
And let me just clarify, for research and theory division, you do want to say upfront that this is a proposal that's completed research, or this is a proposal with in progress research, so that the reviewer knows what type of proposal they're looking at.
Sure. Okay.
I'm guessing that's true of any division, although I mean, I'm not certain of that. I mean, I know Till would like to know that.
Okay, so that leads me to ask a question then. If I'm listening correctly, I am in the process of creating a new method or potentially a new model for mock trial. So it's research that we're doing, it's instructional that we're doing. What does it not go to research? Would it go to a different division?
When I was creating, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Bruce. I know Annetta has a love for OTP, so I was just jumping in. But it depends, Annetta. I mean, just because you're doing research doesn't mean that your research isn't related to another division.
Right.
Just step on Heather or anything, but if you're doing like workplace research, perhaps it goes to OTP. If you're doing something about integrating technology into learning, maybe it goes to Bruce and Till. So that kind of thing, if you're doing research on emerging technologies, DELT might be a better fit. So it really depends on what that research is, but you could consider across the board really looking at the divisions and seeing what they're interested in.
Okay.
And Bruce, anything?
No, what I was going to say, that's fine, Jen. We go back to the late 50s. What I was going to say is that you want to when I was first developing my my theory, and actually Dr. Dousay would know because she works with interest development. So when I was first working my theory, developing my theory of integrating interest development with ISP, with information search, I presented on it. And I did. I mean, I got accepted, and I presented just the idea that I was developing this new theory. So we're theory and and research and practice. So it's theory is fine. I mean, and I was new at it too, so it was it was great to get feedback as well. The other thing that I would say is I strongly recommend, because I have done it and Jen knows this as well, the Summer Journal Symposium is an outstanding way for you to get experience in all of this stuff and to hang out with the people who run the journals. Mm-hmm. So, and of course, just to hang out with Brad Hokinson is always a pleasure. But, the truth is, it's another one of those things that as a new member of AECT was super valuable to me, and got me connected to more folks and to more activities.
And Bruce, what was it that you were doing when you first joined?
When I first joined AECT, I came down on a scholarship. I was a school librarian.
Okay.
I was a public school librarian. And that was 2012. And then I started my PhD program in 2016.
Okay.
So it, you know, after 4 years at AECT, I finally got the message. You know?
So I just want to add to that, again, research and theory division, we do the in progress research, the completed research. We also are happy to have proposals about new and innovative methodologies or the application of these newer and innovative methodologies, and anything related to theory. So if you're doing theory development or literature review on theory or anything like that, we're happy to, we love proposals like that.
Okay. All right, y'all, just hold on one sec. I'm doing the time check part. We do have 3 minutes. I know some of us are willing to stay after, but I want to be respectful for all time. So there's now officially 2 minutes.
So we discussed in group 3 a little bit about how you're not going to scattershot your proposal. You're going to send it to one division and one division only. But if we have a manuscript submission out, so that's out and it's being vetted by a journal, could we, you guys have talked about reworking things. Could that be reworked and put in as a proposal, or would that be bad form?
You can go the other way around, but I don't know about this particular way. So if you submit something to AECT and it's accepted, any AECT journal will work with you to take your proposal and turn it into a full manuscript to publish it. But you could be risking copyright issues with the journal that you're under consideration with by trying to present that work at AECT. So you'd have to be really careful with how distinct is it from what you submitted to the journal.
I know we're almost out of time, but if there's substantial difference in components of the project, can you submit 2 different proposals, one to each?
Yes, I've presented on 2 presentations around the same project, but very different aspects of the project.
I've also done the same thing.
My recommendation, though, be careful when you're writing the proposal, just so we can make sure that they're distinctly different. A couple times when I've been planning recently, I've come across where it feels like I'm reading verbatim the same proposal, one submitted as a roundtable and one submitted as a concurrent, and maybe they were presenting on different topics, but I wasn't aware of that because of how close they were. That happened with a poster session last year. It appeared the same poster was submitted to 2 divisions and both were accepted, but it turned out after we talked to the person, oh, these are different components, but they combined it in one poster after we had the talk with them.
interesting.